The opening shot of The Place Beyond the Pines is the most impressive shot in the whole film. To me, it's one of the best character introductions in any movie.
It was such an epic scale to the film that we had to start the movie out with an epic opening shot.
Before we see his face or learn his name, we're shown the attributes of Ryan Gosling's character: knife-wielding, cigarette-smoking, and covered in tattoos.
The idea was just to kind of create a portrait of somebody that had clearly had a long history of making bad decisions.
The handheld camera follows him out of his trailer and through a maze of civilians. We're immersed in the flashing carnival lights and the ambient noises all around. The crowd roars with excitement as he walks into the tent, and finally we see his face. Joined by two other riders, handsome Luke enters the globe of death. This is the image that director and co-writer Derek Cianfrance uses to illustrate the central theme of his film. As the camera pulls back, we're shown a snapshot of Luke's existence. Locked in a cage, spiraling without end, the generational cycle of bad fathers. With the birth of his second son, Cianfrance wanted to make a film about legacies. He inherited a fire from his father and his grandfather before him, and wanted to shield his son from that flame.
I wanted my baby to come into the world clean, without any of my sins, any of my mistakes, any of my wrongdoings, any of my pain. All of a sudden I had a movie to tell about those baton passes, about that passing of the fire between generations.
I was hoping to talk with you about Luke Glanton. I'm his son.
Luke Glanton's son?
Yeah.
Well, come on back, get a beer.
This is the idea woven into the rings of the metal cage, and it's echoed in the Ferris wheel that spins behind Luke. With its lights radiating outward and encircling him, he stands trapped as a product of past failures. Without saying a word, these first minutes give us a deep understanding of Luke's character and embed the filmmaker's purpose for telling the story. I want to trace a line from Luke to Jason to see how Cianfrance connects father to son, separated by 50 minutes of runtime. But before they were forever separated, a dad got to cherish a few short days with his boy.
Who's that guy?
This is the moment that changes Luke's life forever.
He's yours.
It's the moment he first meets Jason and realizes that he's a father. Before holding him, Luke rubs his hands together, burning off the dirt and grease from his bike. The purity of his son makes him aware of his own filth, both external and internal. He doesn't want to leave a mark.
It's like holding up a mirror and realizing this kind of like absurd joke, which is like all surface and without any depth or thought. When I was like holding that kid, I just felt all this shame that I looked this way and that I had made these decisions to look this way, and it added something to the performance that I never could have.
He just kind of covered his body with all these choices that he didn't really think through. So Ryan went into every scene, instead of feeling cool, he felt really more deeply ashamed.
Luke's tenderness while holding Jason highlights an unsuspecting goodness in him.
I was just gonna take him to the park or maybe see if I could just sit on the porch.
He lives at the bottom of society, marred by the sin and regret that he wears on his skin, but these intimate moments early on completely change how we see him. To Cianfrance, nothing is ever black and white.
I'm always interested in characters that are beautiful and ugly. They're ugly and beautiful. To me, that's humanity. It's in the gray area.
Luke lives at the convergence of right and wrong, pulled down by the consequences of fatherlessness, but driven by a powerful sense of virtue and responsibility.
It's my son and I should be around him. I wasn't around my dad, look the way I turned out. I want to take care of my son, that's my job. Let me do my job.
The patchwork tattoos covering Luke's body display this internal conflict. When he carries Jason out to the porch, consoling him and shielding his head, we see the Bible prominently inked on his left hand. Though not a rule, Luke predominantly uses this hand to protect the ones he loves. It's the hand he uses to hide Romina's tears, and the hand he uses to give her the bag of money. Conversely, with his right hand, he brandishes his gun, chain smokes cigarettes, and bludgeons Kofi with a wrench, one side of him for good, and the other for evil. The opposing boxers on each of his biceps represent this same conflict. While you don't need the Bible on his hand to note this duality, the tattoo contributes to a pool of religious symbolism throughout the film, and deepens our understanding of Luke's psychology. Cianfrance's own Catholic upbringing bleeds into much of the film's unspoken subtext. Ideas about God and religion are tangled up in Luke's mind. Abandoned by his father as a child, Luke may have projected that resentment onto God, rejecting him as a spiritual father because the only father he ever knew walked away. The religious details throughout the film are too intentional to ignore. For example, in the first bank robbery, listen to what Luke screams. Pray! Pray! After this threat, if you listen closely, you can hear mumblings of the Lord's Prayer blending into the music. While everyone prays on their knees, Luke speeds off with the spoils, his back turned to God. These ideas come to an emotional breaking point at Jason's baptism. Into this church, with walls reaching all the way to heaven, walks Luke. Feeling like a marked man, he slides into a back pew alone. In the script, Luke becomes enraged watching his son be baptized, but Gosling's performance brings the character to a different place, one where true guilt and shame surge to the surface. As the congregation recites the Lord's Prayer,
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Gosling breaks into tears.
Instead of boiling with rage, he was trembling. And this kind of well of mortification, of humiliation started building up inside of him, that he was ashamed.
In the midst of the joyful applause, Mike Patton's score claps like thunder, pulling us into the storm. Where tree trunks surround him like prison bars, Luke wrestles with the man he is and the man he must become. In Luke's desperation to spare Jason from his pain, he pushes it too far, leaving his son the very fate he tried so hard to prevent.
You know something, Luke? If you ride like lightning, you're gonna crash like thunder.
It's a heartbreaking biblical end. With his death, the long spiral of bad inheritance completes another loop.
There's a transcendent moment when this first kind of surprise happens in the film. And there's a sense of denial that I feel too as an audience member. No, that didn't just happen. Yeah. Please tell me that's not what just happened.
At this point, the film undergoes its first baton pass, and we're forced to leave Luke Glanton in the past.
And then there's no going back from it. You know what I mean? There's no flashback. But to me, it was very important and responsible for me as a filmmaker to put something into the world that was responsible for its actions.
Removing Ryan Gosling from your film is always a bad idea, but this is the one exception. Because only in Gosling's complete absence from the screen can Cianfrance subvert our expectations in such a profoundly moving way. The film's triptych structure means there are 3 distinct sets of main characters, each one inseparably linked to the others. Luke's death pushes a young Schenectady cop named Avery Cross into the spotlight.
His hand comes up, he fires, you fire.
Right.
It sounds like he shot first.
Yeah.
Not wanting to jeopardize his career so soon, Avery smothers the truth in a lie, one that will haunt him for 15 years and tear a deep chasm of separation between him and his family. At home, he has a wife and a little boy named AJ. The town parades him as a hero for killing a bad guy, but inside, the guilt tears him apart.
I have a hard time looking at my son.
A boy just like his will grow up without a father, all because of his mistake. As the film moves into the last baton pass, we observe how the mistakes of 2 flawed fathers ripple like waves in their sons. We meet Jason in high school where his path crosses with AJ. They're oblivious to the act that connects them. Coming from opposing tribes, Jason and AJ find themselves in a very similar place. Jason was never told what happened to Luke.
How come Mom never talks to me about my dad?
Kofi tried his best to raise him as his own son, but the question always hangs in the air like a dark storm cloud. He feels like an outsider in his own family.
'Cause I saw that guy today. Your dad.
Sons bear a resemblance of their fathers. So without a dad, you lose the best person to show you the man you could become. Jason can't see himself in Kofi, so that sense of belonging is missing.
He's not your father. Not really.
Just some guy with a baby.
Watching them interact at the familiar ice cream shop, you aren't thinking about the sweet bonding moment between father and son, you're thinking about this.
Wanna give him ice cream?
Yeah. I'm gonna do something with him that's his first time. I'm look in his face when he tries ice cream. Every time he has ice cream for the rest of his life, he's gonna see my face.
Luke's legacy affects us as viewers more than it does Jason in this scene. Something just doesn't feel right.
Can you at least tell me his name?
In this part of the film, Luke is present in all the ways that Jason unknowingly imitates him. He smokes cigarettes as Luke did countless times before. His friendship with AJ parallels Luke's friendship with Robin. As he steals from the pharmacy, we think back to the bank robberies and the near getaways. And as blood drips down his beaten face, it calls back the last image we saw of Luke, lying dead on the ground. Moments like these and many more make Luke feel close, like the Ferris wheel looming in the background, like a gentle, almost comforting ghost.
Pretty much every scene in the movie has an echo or a couple of echoes.
The composition of these scenes at the trailer seems to bridge across time to bring Jason and Luke together. But there's one specific echo that feels more impactful than all the rest.
Yeah, you're calling him back.
As Jason rides down this road surrounded by trees, Cianfrance stirs the same emotions we felt as we watched Luke. Yet somehow, in the repetition, the echo becomes an even more beautiful, harrowing whisper of the past. It's a moment of escape, a pocket of freedom that feels transcendent. We're watching this paternal legacy play out in a way that not even the characters can see, like it's from God's perspective.
I felt like in the movie I wanted to have a series of these overhead shots that would float behind the characters and almost God's eye view of going down these roads, of them repeating these legacies.
Paired with Mike Patton's The Snow Angel, a few short seconds become the most profoundly affecting moments in the film. When Jason finally learns the truth about his dad, he takes matters into his own hands.
We're gonna get in your car, and you're just gonna keep driving.
Unsure of his own intentions, his anger carries him to Avery, gun in hand. Avery is driven to the same woods that he ran from before, where he refused to face the consequences of his actions, where fear overcame him and like a coward, he ran, kicking the pebble of judgment further down the road. But now he's met up with it again, and this time it's grown too large to kick. He must face it. In this place buried deep within the pines, where no one would hear a gunshot ring out.
I'm sorry, Jason. I'm sorry.
The place Avery had been running from for 15 years ends up being the very place he needed to go to find freedom. Here on his knees, expecting to die, he's given the opportunity to repent, to apologize to Luke's son. The gunshot never rings out. The silence of the woods is broken by running footsteps, growing quieter in the distance until silence returns. When Avery finally looks up, kneeling amidst the trees like a caged bird, we cut to a warm sunset where birds fly free through the air. The expanse of the sky envelops the screen like a golden hug. He's free. Free to move forward with a clear conscience and free to bridge the chasm he dug back to AJ. There's freedom in forgiveness, but there's also freedom in forgiving. On Jason's side of the exchange, he makes a choice to not take revenge, an act that no one would have blamed him for. But it's only by forgiving Avery that Jason can break free from the spiral he was born into. There is hope for sons to change their legacy. They're not destined to repeat the sins of bad fathers forever. For you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free.
The only way we could end this movie was with forgiveness. And in forgiveness, I feel like there's freedom. So the last shot of the film had to be breaking into freedom again.
The final shot of the film imitates the unbroken take that it opened with. Jason is able to carry on the good in Luke, that left side, leaving behind the chains of the right that brought on his early demise. With few words, just like his father, Jason rides off. This time not into a cage, but to an open road.
The place beyond the pines is where he gets to. It's where Jason goes.